Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and I'm out here on the back side of the Pathfinder School property today. And what I wanted to show you or give you a few ideas with, this is the Pathfinder Jungle Hammock and Tarp. And right now, they are on sale. We have a spring sale going on with this combination. I think it's $67.99, somewhere in that neighborhood. Don't quote me on the exact price, but that's within $1. And what I wanted to show you today was, instead of just saying, hey, look at this hammock and look at this tarp, what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you some modifications that I've made and some tips and tricks you can use to make your life easier setting up camp and maybe make your equipment last a little longer that you're using as well. Now, bear in mind, there's nothing wrong with this set as it comes. It's ready to use when you take it out of the box. Everything is inclusive. However, it does have fluorescent guy lines. It has fluorescent lines within the kit that I'm not a big fan of. I like that more woodland type colors, right? So I've done things like replacing the fluorescent cord here with paracord, replacing guy lines and things like that with paracord. But I've also made some modifications to things like my ridge line, and I want to show you some of that stuff today, and also ways that you can use your ridge line more conducively so that if you use it over and over and over again, you're not putting as much stress on the rope itself. So stay with me, we'll get started. Now, looking at these kits, okay, let's talk about the hammock first. The hammock comes as you see it right now. It comes in a bag with a cinch strap. It comes with a dark brown paracord that matches this, and I like this kind of a multicolored paracord a little bit better, and it's one of my rapid deployment ridge lines anyway, so I threw it in and took the other one out. And I've got some prusik loops attached to this as well, we'll talk about in a few minutes. It comes with 2 hammock straps, Atlas style straps for the tree. They come with the hammock. And then it comes with the hammock itself that just comes out of here, and it's already got all of the connection points on it, like, let me find one for you here. I have to pull all the way out to get to them. But it's got the carabiners already on it right here, heavy duty carabiners that go inside of straps when you set it up. So it's a very, very nice system. And then it has a bug net built into it, and that bug net is reinforced in all directions, okay? And it has reinforced tabs right here that hold it up off the ridge line. And we're going to talk about this and not feeding our ridge line all the way through this every time to set this up, because that makes it easier to get up and take down as well. All right, so let's first set the hammock up and then we'll talk about the tarp. Okay, so it's real simple. These straps are very much like any other Atlas style strap on the market today. They've got a large loop on it here that you wrap around the tree. You pass it through, and you use these segmented loops to hang your carabiner in to get your adjustment for hang angle. I like to start with this thing just above eye level. Now, if you're using a smaller diameter tree, there's nothing wrong with going around the tree twice and then coming through this loop either. It's not going to hurt anything. If by doing it once, you've got such a long length here that you really can't choke up far enough, put that thing through a second time. Once you've got your strap on the tree, it's as simple as picking a spot and throwing a carabiner in there, going to the other side, doing the same thing, and then adjusting up and down to get the distance between the trees that you want and the hang angle that you want. Now that's going to give me a good starting position. I've got that hammock, when I push down with my hand, right at about, just above right sternum level here. But I know that when I sit in this hammock, and I don't need to unzip it to do this, I can just kind of roll it in and sit on it. I know it's going to stretch, right? So we'll let that thing stretch out for a minute. You want to keep things nice and tight, but this is almost perfect for me right now because my knees are bent perfectly like I was sitting in a chair, and I'm sitting in the hammock. So if I want a place to relax during the day, this is definitely a good place to do that. I can just kick back and hang out, right? Take a nap if I want to, nothing to it. If this thing gets too loose on me, then I can choke up one slot on either end of this thing on the strap, and it's not a big deal. And I may end up doing that before it's over with, depending on how much this thing stretches. Now, before we talk about the tarp, because there is a ridge line in here as well, let's talk about the ridge line that was in the hammock bag. That is so that you can set this hammock up and raise the bug net without a tarp. If you wanted to just sleep without a tarp. And a lot of times I do that, especially if I know it's not going to rain. I love to be able to look at the stars. So I want you to see this ridge line the way I've got it set up, because it makes it very, very simple and reusable, and it doesn't damage the cord and put a lot of stress on the cordage. And it makes it really easy with this hammock. I have a bowline loop on the end like any normal rapid deployment ridge line, but I have a small steel S hook on here. This is an off-brand of Amazon. You can buy them in packs of 6 or 12, and there's a reason for that we'll talk about in a minute. Then I have 2 black hooks on here that are both aluminum hooks, and I have one on a prusik here, again, that's steel, okay? A steel hook here, a steel hook here, 2 aluminum hooks. And the reason I have 2 steel ones versus 2 aluminum is to cut down on the weight, and also the stress on the steel is going to be more than on the aluminum. Other than that, it's a rapid deployment ridge line with basically 1 prusik loop on it, and that prusik loop is going to be what we're going to use to tighten this ridge line, nothing else. These 2 hooks are for the bug net, and this hook is to go around the tree. So let's look at that real quick, because we didn't add any weight to that ridge line whatsoever with those 4 little bitty hooks, okay? So now I'm going to pull this out and give myself enough to go around the tree, and I'm going to slide the hooks and the prusik out of my way. So now I have this hook on the end. I'm going to wrap that around the tree, and I'm going to go just below where my lines are, and I'm going to clip that in just like that. And that clips that to the tree and holds it. And when I want to leave, all I have to do is unclip that. Now I don't need any toggles. I don't need any special knots. I don't need anything but that clip to hold my ridge line. And that clip weighs, again, nothing, right? We'll talk about the total weight of all of this kit put together when we're done with 2 ridge lines, okay? That are set up very similar. So now I'm just pulling this out of the hank, hanging on to those 2 hooks and that prusik, and just letting everything unhank by itself, right? No muss, no fuss. Easy as she goes, all right? Till we get to the other tree. Now, when we get to this other tree, we're gonna make sure that we have this prusik with this steel hook in sight here. We're gonna go around this tree and come around like we would with any rapid deployment ridge line. But instead of tying a knot in this cordage that we're going to pop out every time putting stress on the cord, we're just gonna clip into this hook right here, and that's going to be our rope tackle to tighten this ridge line as tight as it will go. And then it's just a normal tie off of a slippery half hitch right there to hold it in place. And I take this line and I just wrap it around my hand just like this. And just put a lark's head in that whole coil right over the top of the line to neaten things up. And it's done, okay? Now these 2 black hooks are going to be used on our bug net. We have 1 D-ring right here that's reinforced, but now we didn't have to feed our line through that D-ring. All we have to do is clip it into this hook, and it's good, okay? Simple as that. We're gonna do the same thing down on the other end. We're gonna find the other D-ring, and we're just gonna clip it in. And now we're good. Now our bug net is set up, and we didn't have to run our ridge line through it on the way. And when we're done, all we have to do is either unclip these and leave them on the bug net, or unclip them and leave them on the line. It's really up to you how you do that. It doesn't really matter either way. It's gonna be the same amount of weight. Okay, last modification that I do to this hammock is I put zipper pulls on the zippers, okay? And that's just the same type paracord I use for my ridge line and some shrink tubing. And that's just so that I can find those zippers at night, because they're on the inside too. It's got a double zipper system on it. So they're on the inside as well as the outside. And that's at night, I can easily find zippers and I don't have to search around for them. There's nothing wrong with the way it comes. You can use it that way just fine. It's just, this is a modification I do to make things easier on me in camp. Okay, once we've got everything set, unzip our bug net away so we can get in here. Get our bug net behind us, just like that. Get in. Reach up there and grab a zipper pull. I like to get that thing right about face level, just like that, so I know where it's at night. Get offset in the hammock a little bit here, and I'm good. Ready for a good night's sleep. Again, having this thing right here, all I gotta do is walk backwards, step out. Real easy. Okay, now to the tarp. Again, I have a second ridge line in this tarp in case I want to use a tarp by itself. But you can set these 2 ridge lines up fairly identical, and you can use the same ridge line you've got your bug net on, can be used for this. Or you can just leave those clips on the bug net, and then either one you use will work as long as they're set up the same way. So we have a second ridge line in our tarp bag. And this is only really a tarp ridgeline. It's not for the hammock necessarily. But if we leave the clips on the hammock itself, then we can just clip them to whatever ridgeline we're using. The difference between the two ridgelines really is the amount of prusik loops. We only have one prusik loop on this ridgeline for the hammock, whereas the one for the tarp has 3 on it, okay? And it's gonna have 4 of those clips. Then you would just leave your clips on your bug net that are there, and you can clip them to any ridgeline you were using very, very easily on the inside. Now, as far as the tarp goes itself, I've taken that neon cord and replaced it with this brown and black paracord. And I've put a ridgeline in here as well, and I've changed out the stakes. There's nothing wrong with the stakes. There's nothing wrong with the ropes that come with it. I'm just not a big fan of neon colors, so I changed them out. As far as the stakes go, they were chrome, and I'm a bigger fan of black, although black is harder to find, but I like hexagon style stakes, so I switched out the stakes to the stakes that I use throughout my kits. Not a big deal, like I said. What you can do is, if you're only going to use this tarp with the hammock, then you only need the 1 ridgeline. You don't need 2. I'm carrying 2 in case I want to use this tarp by itself in a ground configuration, because it's plenty big enough to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this ridgeline up here exactly the same as the ridgeline in here so that they match, and then we only need to carry 1 ridgeline if we're keeping this as a set. And the only addition we're going to make to this ridgeline is we're going to put 2 more prusiks on here with 2 more small hooks. Okay, so all I've done is tied a small fisherman's loop of paracord in this tarp. So all I have to do is clip it into that clip. And now I can draw this tight down the line to get my tarp where I want it on this side, so I've got plenty of overlap on the hammock. And then I can go down and pull the other side tight the same way. So now, on the other side, same thing. Simple loop to clip connection here, just like that. And all I have to do is lay it over the top, pull it tight, make sure I've got the overlap I want, and I have a nice taut tarp that way. Now, in my stake bag, again, I replaced that fluorescent cordage, right? So my tie outs are 4 of these cords that are 6 feet long, so that if I need extra, I can use a loop-to-loop connection, but I've got 4 ropes total. I'm only going to use 2 at a time with this setup, so I've got extensions in here as well. And then I have, again, the stakes, okay? Let me show you how I do that. Now, I generally do not leave lines attached to my tarp other than those 2 loops, because I don't want the hassle of folding them up inside the tarp when I'm doing the folding and getting in a stuff sack. And number 2, I change the position I put my cordage sometimes on my tarp if I want a vestibule or if I'm going to the ground. So what I generally do with this is, you've got the same utility cord here with the bowline on one end and a double overhand stop knot in the other. So what I'll generally do with that is I'll just drop that double overhand stop knot through the loop, and then I'll come in here to the bottom and I'll put a marlin spike hitch right there and put that loop right through the marlin spike hitch, just like this, and tighten it down. What that's going to do is it's going to trap that thing just like that, okay? But no matter how hard you pull it, it comes undone very easily, okay? So I'll walk through that again. All I do is put that double overhand stop knot through there. I come up here and I turn a marlin spike hitch in this line. If I put a stake through there, which I'm going to do in a minute, this would be a marlin spike hitch on the stake. So instead of putting a stake through there, I'm going to put this through that marlin spike hitch and draw it down on top of that knot, just like that, okay? Now, no matter how much force I put on this, it's very easy to break it open and get it undone, but it's not going to come undone. And then I'm going to take this to stake it out, and I'll just turn another marlin spike hitch in the line, and I'll put the stake in that to draw it out where I want and stake it down. So that becomes a really easy way to stake out. I've got a loop here on the end that I can pull on to pull my stake. Once I pull the stake out of that loop, it comes undone all by itself. So I just turned the marlin spike hitch in the line, ran the stake in there and tightened it down on the marlin spike hitch, came out here, put it in at a 45-degree angle and buried it with my foot all the way in. Doesn't matter. I've got this loop right here. I can always put a toggle in hard ground to pull that stake. And then I just leave it lay, and I'm good. Now I'm all set for a night in a hammock. And literally, if I wasn't filming that, that would have taken less than 5 minutes probably to do in its entirety to set this up, and a little bit longer to take it down because you're repacking. Now when I'm done setting up my camp, anything extra I have, if I have an extra piece of cordage or extra stakes, I just throw them in this bag. There's my stake bag right there, my tarp bag right there. So I know where they're at when I get ready to pack up. And at night, I use this to throw my cell phone, my glasses, things like that in, so they're really accessible if I need them, just by reaching out of the bug net in there and get it, okay? Really, really good system. That's not a lot of money. I appreciate you guys' views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.